Hey guys, Brian Taylor here, and today we're going to be talking about f-stop, because that's something you absolutely need to know. Roll the intro! I spend a decent amount of time combing through Facebook groups and listening to new photographers, and the same question continues to pop up. And that is, how do I get my images to be sharp, or how do I get that thing where people throw the background out of focus? Kind of like what you see here. That's all controlled by the f-stop. Using the f-stop will make sure that you are able to control how much light comes into your camera and also how much stuff is sharp. That sharpness and the amount of light is all controlled by the f-stop. The f-stop controls the iris of the lens. Every lens has one. The iris is that really cool thing with all the blades. Here, let me see if I can put a little video of it up here. So that's your iris. Your iris can be wide open and letting a lot of light into your camera, or it can be closed down and only letting a little bit of light into the camera. The lower the number, the wider open the iris is. By the way, that hole in the iris, that's called the aperture. Very important. You're going to hear that a lot. So that hole gets bigger the smaller the f-stop number, and the hole gets smaller the bigger the f-stop number. Your lens and the f-stop is also responsible for controlling something called depth of field, or the focal plane. Here's how this works. If you take your camera and you turn it to the side, and you look at everything that goes out this way, everything that you see through your lens is divided into what is called a focal plane. There's one here, there's one here, there's one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, off into infinity. Each one of those focal planes is something that the camera and the lens can focus on. The lens can only focus on one of these focal planes at a time. It cannot focus on all of them. Yes, there are some pretty snazzy lenses out there, but right now we're just talking about basic ass lenses. The focal plane that the camera focuses on has a certain depth to it. This is called depth of field. The depth of field is directly related to the f-stop number, the iris, and the aperture. Here's how that works. When you have your aperture wide open, which means the hole in the center of the iris, the f-stop number is really low. When you have it wide open, the depth of field, the plane of focus, is very, very shallow, which means if you're taking a picture of Bob, you're only gonna get Bob. You're not going to get what's behind Bob. So much like this image, you are going to see me and I'm in focus, but my background is out of focus and now my fingers are out of focus. That is a shallow depth of field. So if you want to increase the depth of field or make it a deeper depth of field to where you see more on the focal plane in focus, the focal plane that was shallow gets bigger when you take the f-stop number up. Really easy to remember. The higher the f-stop, the more stuff's in focus. The lower the f-stop, the less stuff's in focus. The f-stop controls the iris and aperture of the lens. It dictates how much light comes through the lens or how much light doesn't come through the lens. That aperture is the hole. The lower the f-stop number, the bigger the hole, more light. The higher the f-stop number, the smaller the hole, less light. If you want to get more stuff in focus, you need a higher f-stop or a smaller aperture. That puts more things in focus. But if you want to do what I'm doing here in this video, keeping me in focus, putting my fingers out of focus, throwing the background out of focus, then you will need a lower f-stop number, which means the hole in the iris, the aperture is going to be bigger. A bigger aperture, smaller depth of field. A smaller aperture, bigger depth of field. Hope that made sense. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments and I'll be happy to jump in and answer them. You guys are rock stars. Catch you in the next video.